For all updates on CAT Prep, please subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon.
Hi, welcome to Bodhi Prep. My name is Brajesh, and here we have one more passage reading session. Now, in this passage, we have something which is very technical. It is from the world of biology and life sciences, and it's a very interesting passage. Now, the point is that the reason we take these kind of passages is because if you look at the past CAT year papers of 3 4 years, you will realize that most of the passages are from some technical topic. They are not easy to read. They have some technicalities in them, and that's why as a reader you must be ready to absorb technical information without memorizing that information. So here we have a similar passage, and we will try to read the passage and summarize every paragraph, and in the end we will find the central idea, the main idea of the passage, by collecting all the paragraph. Now let's read it. It says, although vipers are famous for their venomous bites, it turns out that these snakes have another story to tell. By studying the genetic diversity of the neotropical rattlesnake, scientists can reconstruct how the South American landscape may have looked millions of years ago. So the author says that snakes have some other story to tell. So the author says that with the help of snakes, or with the help of rattlesnake, what we can do is we can create the landscape of South America how it was millions of years ago. So what is the theme of the first paragraph? That by reconstructing that by studying the snakes, the scientist can reconstruct the South American landscape millions of years ago. Neotropical rattlesnakes are found in dry, arid parts of South America and small savanna pockets in the Amazon. Many of these snake populations are discontinuous or separated from one another by wet rainforest habitat. Although these populations are all part of the same species, they have small but noticeable genetic differences. These differences can signal when and where population stops interbreeding and became geographically isolated. But it is difficult to picture how and when these gradual changes happen. Now, this is a very interesting paragraph. What has happened here is that uh, you have uh, you have two different snake, and it says that one is found in dry arid parts of South America and the other is found in the savanna pockets in the Amazon. And the author says that there are some differences between these two different varieties of snakes. They're in the same species. The point is that they are in the same species, but there are some noticeable genetic difference, and these differences can signal when and where these populations stopped interbreeding and became geographically. So there must have been some reason as to how they became geographically isolated. And the author says it's difficult to picture how and when these gradual changes happen. So definitely there must have been some changes in the in the landscape of South America, because of which we have the same species of snake getting separated. One went into the dry arid parts of South America and the other remained in the savanna part of the Amazon forest. And in spite of being from the same species category, they have some differences, and co- these differences can signal when and where populations stop interbreeding. So yes, this geographical isolation, there must have been some reason, and the author says it's difficult to picture how and when these changes happen. So yes, they have been separated because of some reason, and because of this separation, there are some genetic differences, the author says. So let's see what next he has to say. At the National Museum of Natural History, Dr. Edward Myers, a postdoctoral fellow in the division of amphibians and reptiles, has built an environmental models for neotropical rattlesnakes in ancient South America using data from the museum's collection. By combining his models with genetic records from present populations, Myers can map how this viper once slithered across South America, leaving behind several maroon populations in savanna islands surrounded by a sea of inhospitable tropical rainforest. So, again, Mr. Myers, what he has done, he has collected data, and what he has done, he has created a map. And what he has done in the map, Myers can map how this viper once slithered across South America, leaving behind several marooned populations in savanna islands surrounded by a sea of inhospitable tropical rainforest. So, Mr. Myers has collected data, environmental models for neotropical rattlesnakes, and then he has said how this the snake must have been there in the entire South America, but gradually uh, they became a part of in the Savannah Islands, surrounded by a sea of inhospitable tropical rainforests. Okay, so next paragraph says most of the museum's rattlesnake specimens are catalogued with a precise location and date. Myers has paired this information with climate data, like average temperature and precipitation from databases like World Claim to determine what climate range the snakes can live in. What they prefer now is similar to what they preferred in the past. So now Mr. Myers, what he is doing here is that he is cataloging the specimens and he is pairing it with the climate data, and then he's trying to create a table wherein he can say that how the snakes must have lived in that particular climate area, and then he says that what they prefer now is similar to what they preferred in the past, and that is how you have the climate information about about the South American landscape where the snakes lived. By projecting what we know about this species' current environment, we can find where this species could have lived in ancient South America, said Myers. Since today's separated populations are genetically alike enough to count as one species, they must have been in the not too distant past, which to an evolutionary biologist means one point in the last few million years. This suggests that currently isolated populations were probably once connected by rattlesnake suitable environment that have since disappeared. Now this is where all the secret of the passage is revealed to you, because this one statement gives us the link between all the puzzles. Now, how is it happening here? The author says that we have snakes living in the dry part of South America and we have snakes living in the Amazon savanna forest. And in between that, we don't have the snakes. That means they have got separated, and because of that separation, they have become genetically different. But once upon a time, they must. So, the author says that this suggests that currently isolated populations were probably once connected by rattlesnake suitable environment that have since disappeared. So this environment has disappeared, and because of that reason, one kind of one section of the same species is found in the dry part of South America, whereas the other section of the same species is found in the savanna part of the South American forests. Climate models show how the continent's landscape changed over time, giving Myers a hypothetical time frame for when different colonies may have splintered. You can use climate models as a hypothesis for what a pattern of genetic diversity in the species should look like today, says Dr. Raina Bell, an evolutionary biologist at the California Academy of Sciences. Sequencing the snake's genomic records can be used as a test for Myers environmental models. So what happens here is that the climate model has come into picture. That bias, it says here that climate models show that how continent's landscape changed over time, and you can use climate models as a hypothesis for what a pattern of genetic diversity in the species should look like today. So with the help of the climate models, we can guess we can create a pattern of the genetic diversity. Sequencing the snake's genomic records can be used as a test for Myers environmental models. So the genomic records can be sequenced, and with the help of that, we can get to know the environmental models. As the South American environment changed, some regions became less hospitable for the rattlesnakes. These snakes could no longer travel back and forth, so they began to evolve separately over thousands of years. Over time, genetic differences between separate communities grew. Evolutionary biologists can compare the percent of genetic change between populations to determine when they diverge as sort of molecular clock. With DNA sequencing, you can test how populations were connected and whether there has been breeding between two populations that are separated now, said Myers. Once he identifies genetic differences between populations, he can use the data to chart when populations of rattlesnakes in South America fragmented, and in turn test whether his ancient models of where the snakes lived in the past are accurate. So what is happening here is that they are trying to connect two things in this passage. One is the rattlesnake population and how this population is scattered in the present day South American landscape. So this rattlesnake population currently seems to be in two different places. One is the dry part of South America, and the other is the savanna part of South America, which is the South American jungle. So you can say savanna part, correct? So savanna part and the dry part are the two different are the savanna part and the dry part are the two different areas where you have the rattlesnake. Now, uh, Mr. Meyer says that once upon a time, these two populations, which are slightly genetically different today, must have been one population, and they must have become separated because of the change in the environment in the South American continent. So, by doing the genetic sequencing and all those things, we can come up with climate models and environmental models, and then the genetic sequencing can be used to understand the environment and how it must have been, and from this we can guess the accuracy. So the genetic sequences can help us understand the environment and how it has changed over the millennia. This is what the whole idea is. So if you look at the central idea of the passage, then the rattlesnake population, which has been separated in the South American landscape, and the genetic sequencing of those two populations can help us understand how the environment or the landscape of South America has changed over the past millions of years. And from this we can get to know whether the environmental model that has been created is accurate or not. So this is broadly what the message is. In fact, this is not going to be an easy passage because lots of technicalities are there, but once you have understood the central theme, you can go and read the questions and then use the question and the options to better understand what would be the right answer for that particular question. So yes, this kind of passage is not going to be, I mean, one reading may not be enough for you to understand everything, but there are lots of things in this paragraph which you won't understand, but there are certain moments in the passage where you get to know what exactly is the whole story and the bigger story. And once you get to know that, it becomes easy for you to answer the questions. Because understand this, most of the time the questions would be around those areas of the passage which are easy to understand most of the time. And once you have understood those parts of the passage, answering the question becomes very easy.